You're listening to the Grind Line Podcast.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. You're listening to episode 301. I'm your host, Greg. I am here tonight with Tyler, and welcome back, Ryan. We did a little claps for Ryan. Ryan has returned. He's almost a learned doctor, but he has one more exam to do, and then he is done with school, but he has graced us with his presence tonight. I think
You're
probably because the Red Wings won a game, so there's actually, joyous things to talk about. But how are you guys doing tonight?
It wasn't a joyous win, if that's what we're going to try to talk about.
Oh, no. The win itself was not pretty. There was good stuff in the win, but how are you guys doing tonight?
I am good. It feels good to be back on. It's been a long half a year plus with school. So to not have to think about it, even though I have one exam left, is perfect. What's not perfect has been Red Wings hockey, but we'll talk about that and the feelings about that. Tyler?
I'm doing phenomenal. Welcome back, Ryan. We missed you. I missed your snarky comments and everything. So just glad to have the band back together, so to speak, and talk about this lackluster hockey team, to say the least. I went to the game against Boston last week, and to nobody's surprise, the Wings actually lost the game. So that shouldn't shock anybody here. If you guys know anything about me going to games, especially in Boston, it doesn't usually turn out good for the Wings. So.
Hey, we thought you finally broke the curse. Obviously, that was a lie.
Well, I went with Ryan and Ryan's dad, and Ryan's dad was giving me shit the whole time, so that was fun. No, I mean, it was a good time overall. It was a weekday game, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's a good time.
So we do have a Red Wings win to talk about. The Detroit Red Wings stumbled their way to a win against the Buffalo Sabres in a game in which I called it "What is defense?" That is basically was the theme of the game. Poor goaltending from Ville Husso, who ended up getting pulled after the first period, and the rookie Sebastian Cossa makes his debut. Minus the first, 10 minutes, a little bad bounce on his first goal, like terrible bounce. Second one, he just didn't get over fast enough to stop that Zucker goal. But after that, he pretty much locked it down, made some big saves, won in a shootout. Super happy for the kid.
Had a little help, but that's what good goaltending gets you, I guess, right?
It is what good goaltending gets you, and it's what good goaltending has gotten you most of the time, going back to last season when you had to over rely on guys like Alex Lyon for a good portion of it. Now, we're going to kind of do the pump the brake moment a little bit. Sebastian Cossa is going to be going back to Grand Rapids. I don't think there is any world in which they say, oh, wait, look, he was good. Let's immediately get rid of someone and just keep him up for the rest of the season. I think Kossa's in GR. I think Cossa goes on to help Grand Rapids get to the Calder Cup finals or the Calder Cup playoffs at least. And it is what it is at that moment. But I think what he showed is that he has the skills and ability to come up and play big boy hockey. Like he was calm. He was poised. He was moving around. He showed that athleticism. The dude's a freaking monster. He is huge. He stands like a full 3 feet above that net. And it's awesome to see basically what you're relying on to be your future starter goaltender come in and just grab that net like that.
Yeah, and you listen to the comments from Ozzy. He was excited seeing how Husso came in. Obviously, it wasn't the ideal situation for what is your first NHL appearance because, as Cossa made comment, his family was not there. No one expected him to have to play. The obvious intent and majority of the time when you see a rookie like of this, any stature, the family's trying to be there. Thankfully, from what it sounds like, they were watching, but he came in and he did his job. And I think that's what stood out when you watch the post game with Osgood is that he was confident. You could tell that he started a bit slow. And you could argue that both those first two goals, I mean, you mentioned the wraparound goal. I've got the highlights on the side here. That one he probably was a little too aggressive on, but the first one he had no shot. And then after that, it just seemed like he settled in and felt like he deserved the beat to be there, for a lack of better words. You could argue the team kind of built off that, but it was just a typical game. I don't know what it is with frickin' Buffalo that everyone just wants to score goals. Tage Thompson scored, and I thought it was a 4-goal night incoming. I thought it was over.
Always a barn burner, constantly.
But as a whole, I mean, it's hard to be upset about what Cossa did there. I mean, like I said, there was some moments where there's some posts that saved him, but in a way that is what you want. You'd rather them hit post and have it go out of play and not be a threat than anything else, because it's not in the back of the net.
Sebastian Cossa also made history. He is the first goalie in history to win his NHL debut via shootout in a relief effort. So coming into the game cold and then winning in a shootout in his debut, he is the first player in NHL history to do that. But Tyler, what did you think of Sebastian Cossa's debut?
Yeah, I thought he got one really bad bounce and then the wraparound goal. I mean, that kind of is what it is. Made 10 saves. I mean, gave up 2 goals in his NHL debut. What did he play? 45-ish minutes of that game. So, like, pretty much all you can ask, honestly. I think he played really good. I think he made some really good saves. Obviously, yeah, he got some help with the post. I think that was on Paterka and the breakaway there. But other than that, I thought he played good, man. I mean, like I said, it's not like he went out there and got lit up, right? Like, Buffalo can score goals. As we know, Tage Thompson's a good player. They have some really good players on that team, some good goal scorers on that team. And to be able to only give up 2 goals, honestly, I mean, he's a year ahead of schedule, right? So, like, does that mean he's going to stay? Who knows? Probably not. But it's good to get your feet wet in the NHL, and he's doing that right now.
I think what's huge too is the fact that he went through an overtime period. It was, yeah, you could argue it was a pretty boring session, because Buffalo's a team that majority of the time when they got possession of it, they were dragging the puck out to center or into their own zone to try to reset, which I still believe should be a delay of game and or stoppage and turnover. But that's just me being, I hate 3-on-3 when you can do that. But I mean, as a whole, you go through that, then he makes the first 2 stops, or the stops in the shootout. That's huge. That you literally are getting thrown to the wolves when it comes to a team that Detroit, for whatever reason, can't stop from scoring goals. You come in, yeah, you let up 2, you stop 12. It's a good night. It's something to hang your hat on to start your NHL career with. And yes, I think, Greg, you're absolutely correct, because they have the flexibility to do it. They're also not going to carry 4 goalies because they can't. But you'll probably see him I'll say probably one more time. I would assume by the end of the weekend, from what we're hearing, he's probably back in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, it sounded like they were going to be out through the weekend.
Yeah, so you might get a start from him on Thursday. Would you do? Is that what you're doing? If you're, I'm not even going to ask if you're alone. But
I am.
What's it going to hurt? Because what scares me right now at this point is you had Husso play really well for 3 games, and then he comes out. You've got 3 goals allowed on 7 shots. Not saying that was all on him. The first one in particular, I don't think he saw, but he also absolutely could have stopped. Maybe I'm thinking different goal, but there was moments where you're just like, oh no, it's happening again with Husso in net. And I don't want to see him get hurt. Don't want to see him lose confidence, because you're going to need him again, most likely at some point. And whether that's in Detroit or whether that's in Grand Rapids,
or whether that's the team he gets traded to toward the deadline.
At this point, until it happens, I don't believe it will happen, because we've seen goalie carousel going on the last couple weeks.
Sure.
And none of them have involved Detroit. Now, granted, yes, guys have been hurt. You retain half that salary, ship them off to San Jose, because apparently they're taking everybody.
Well, you've got 2 lame duck goalies right now in Alex Lyon and Ville Husso. And if you keep both of them until the end of the year, that's a pretty bad look.
Well, what you said with Lyon and Husso?
Yeah, Lyon's contract is up at the end of the year. Husso's contract is up at the end of the year.
I was confused what you meant by lame duck. I was like, what are you talking about? But no, yeah, that's fair. I mean, Lyon is really, either guy at this point would be easy to ship out, because Husso you retain, Lyon you can send as is.
Yeah. Yep.
But
I just don't understand why we can't get one of them to just start playing fucking good. Like, I know the defense.
Lion's been fine.
Have you
just
watched this
hurt.
team defensively play hockey?
But I know, I understand the defense, but like, I feel like when you need a save, you can't get one half the time.
That's been their goat. That's been the only thing consistently good this year.
I understand, but then they have the lapses, and I guess that maybe that's more defensive.
Happen.
Tyler, the biggest problem is we're getting killed on the penalty kill. Like, we're giving up penalties. The penalty kill can't save. They're like getting shelled on the penalty, and they're leaving guys wide open. And that's where the goalies are giving up their goals. They've been some of the best 5v5 goaltenders out there, Lyon and Talbot have. And the problem is, like you said, Ryan, I don't think you'd have any problem at all shipping Alex Lyon. Like, people will pay you for Alex Lyon, especially a team like, I guess it's Colorado, who's picking up every goaltender under the sun right now and giving up ridiculous returns for dudes who are just pretty mid goalies. A team like that, or like the Carolina Hurricanes, should kill to have a goalie like Alex Lyon as at least a backup so that they can make their runs. I think you could ship out a guy like Lyon, no problem. Husso, with his, and the stats aren't pretty for either goalie, but it's because Cossa only faced so many shots, only faced 14. He had 2 goals against at an 8.57 save percentage, but Ville Husso, 3-on-7, that's a 5.71 save percentage that game for a goaltender who the past 2 games before that, or 3 games, was keeping you in those games. And then it's the one soft goal you give up a game that ends up costing you the game. So I think that Husso has earned a rest. And Derek Lalonde even said in hindsight, he probably should have rested him after overworking him, like thinking that maybe that was overworking Husso after him not being back for a while. Like, he was only back, like he came in from Grand Rapids and started playing. And Derek Lalonde's like, yeah, thinking back, I probably should have rested Husso. Like, no shit, you think?
That's been the story of his goaltending management tenure. Like, look what he did to Husso first time around. Ran him into the ground. He was having an all-star year. Our MVP, we've talked about this several times over, got hurt. Lyon rode him until he couldn't go any longer, got hurt. Team fell apart when both guys were eventually unavailable. Like, this has just been to a T. I get ride the hot hand, but at the same time, these hot hands aren't Sergei Bobrovsky. They're not Igor Shesterkin.
They're lukewarm hands.
You've got options to roll with 2 goalies to not destroy one.
One thing I was just going to say, and you think about where Derek Lalonde came from. He came from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who do the Tampa Bay Lightning have? Andrei Vasilevsky. And Andrei Vasilevsky plays, I know it's tapered down a little bit, but he's playing 60 to 65 games per season, right? Like, that's where he cut his teeth. That's where he learned to be a coach in the NHL. And if he sees that, I mean, obviously the logical situation would be like, okay, well, I don't have an Andrei Vasilevsky, so I can't do that. But I think he thinks I don't know if he doesn't think he has one, but something in his head is like, well, we need to ride the hot hand. If we're winning with that guy, we need to go with that guy.
Since not including this year, going back to the 16-17 season where Vasilevsky took over as goalie, he's had 1 season under 50 games played. The year that he didn't have over was the 2021 season.
So someone needs to remind Derek Lalonde that he doesn't have Vasilevsky and that he needs to maybe switch it up a little bit more. There's a couple more players I want to talk about from this game. Lucas Raymond continues to be on fire. Just continues to score goals, get in the open areas, get pucks out. He is, it took him a minute to come back down and realize he could play hockey, but he looks like end of last season Lucas Raymond. It is super exciting.
I'm taking credit for this resurgence because apparently it took me dropping him from my fantasy team for not getting me squat to have him finally pick off. Because literally the first game after I dropped him, he scored a goal and he's been on fire since. So you're welcome.
Yeah, Lucas Raymond has 9 goals his past 10 games.
Yep,
which is pretty fantastic stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. That goal that he scored too was a goal scorer's goal. We talked about this, I think, the last podcast. We need to start seeing more of that from him specifically. And I'm glad to see that we've seen it, the last 10 games ish now. He had a nice goal in Boston too, which like he's been certainly a bright spot, and hopefully he can continue to do that.
And the other guy I want to talk about that I give a ton of props to is vintage Moritz Seider made an appearance. Rookie season Moritz Seider made an appearance where he was laying people out. He scored a goal, super aggressive. And I was talking to people online a little bit about it. And they're like, where has this been? Where's this Mo Seider been? Like, he's back to rookie season. And I'm like, you guys got to realize that I think Mo finally realizes he has Simon Edvinsson as a defensive partner and not Ben Sherratt. And now Mo knows maybe I can take that little extra step and be more aggressive and sacrifice a little bit of defensive play because I have that partner now who I know 9 times out of 10 is not going to blow his assignment, who the people are not going to fly right past him like Ben Sherratt and go down and score a goal if I take 2 extra seconds to lay this guy out. And I think you saw a pissed off, motivated Moritz Seider last night, who was like, we are going to win this game. We are going to hurt the other team. We're going to play physical. And that's what he went out and did. And Edvinsson plays physical as well. But I think Simon Edvinsson, like being able to get Mo that true partner that is a legitimate top pairing defenseman with him, allows him to do that. It allows him to take that extra step and maybe delay that extra second to make a hit or to cut off the play like that, knowing that your partner is there to pick up that defensive slack, which is just really good to see because that's how Mo needs to be utilized. You saw Mo utilized the way he should be on a nightly basis last night.
And you know where it's showing up a bit more too? The score sheet. Seider and Edvinsson have 15 and 13 points respectively. Majority obviously are assists. We saw a beautiful goal from Seider last night, which tied the game, which ultimately helped them win. That type of aggressiveness in the way you could tell that Ed and Seider in particular last night were feeding off of each other. When one would make that play, they had a great rotation pretty much from the middle of the dots all the way up where they were just shifting over top each other. Sometimes you'd have a guy go deep, but they stayed within, you could argue, their system, because the way that we've watched the defense play as a whole, the system doesn't exist and they're just there and you get pissed off. And now you're just like, why do we even do anything? But the way that they have grown together, I think, has been one of the most important aspects to how, even though the season hasn't gone well, that's, I think, the best thing that we could have asked for at this point. And last night was sort of the icing on the cake. Yes, there's still been growing pains. It seems Edvinsson likes to use that reach a bit too much, which gets him in a bad spot, like we saw a couple nights ago. I forget who it was against, where they both poked and reached, goal right at the middle. I think it might have been the Colorado game. I forget off the top of my head. There's things that still need to improve, but it also speaks to the fact that they're just playing really good opposition. And again, Seider is out there against the top lines in hockey. Now you got Ed experiencing that. Thank God they're both young and can essentially handle it. But it's been very promising. And the way that Seider looked last night in particular, that's what I would, as a fan, would like to see more of on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I love what both of those guys bring to the table. Obviously, Seider, speaks for itself, but it's crazy how good Edvinsson has gotten in such a short period of time. I don't even obviously watching all the games myself. I understand how good he is, and we all do, all three of us here, and even the fans that are listening. But you just see the steps being taken every single game. I feel like he gets better, and even when he has a bad game, he bounces back and has a even better game the next one. So I don't know, man. I don't know what the ceiling is for him, but it's scary. And I'm telling you right now, I know he wears 77. I know he's Swedish. You cannot deny how much he looks like Victor Hedman out there. Just some of the plays he makes. So even on offense, he looks big, but he's also nimble. I don't know. It's hard to explain if you've never seen Victor Hedman play hockey, but if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's a lot of similarities. Again, he's not the same player. Will he be the same player or even better? Who knows? We'd be in a damn good shape if he is. But man, it's fun to watch. And even just to double down on that, my friend's dad, who he watches the Bruins and he watches the NHL, but doesn't watch like a lot of different teams all the time. And he's like, "Who's that 77 kid? He looks like the best player on the ice." And that's just from somebody else. So man, the sky is the limit with him, and he's only going to get better. The only caveat is I wish we had, two or three other defensemen that could be even similar to what that first pair is.
We will.
The rest is not good.
Yeah, I think you see probably an Axel Sandy and Palika come over as soon as next season. He is just destroying records over in the SHL, and I mean he himself looks ready. Now, do you need to go into the offseason and sign another second pair defenseman? Probably. And we'll talk a little bit about that after the break. We're going to take a quick break. Word from our sponsor. We'll talk a little bit about the cap announcement that was made during the Board of Governors meeting, or the cap projection that was made during the Board of Governors meeting, and a little bit about where that leaves the Red Wings, plus some listener questions after the breaks. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. From the chill of the arena to skates on ice and people hitting the boards, an NHL game is a sports experience like none other. And when you are looking for tickets, your pick should be Game Time. Game Time is the only app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. And see the great seats with Game Time picks and see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy your tickets. All-in pricing shows you your total cost up front, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just a couple taps. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% off the difference. With event cancellation policies that automatically refund your tickets and 24-hour returns guaranteed, you are protected with the Game Time app. And starting now until December 2nd, Game Time is giving us an exclusive deal on Winter Classic tickets. You can get 10% on bleacher seats and 20 to 25% on home plate area tickets. So don't miss out on one of the biggest sporting events this year at Wrigley Field. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The 2024-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
And we're back. And before we get into cap stuff, from Patreon, we got to make fun of Burner because he said he was wrong about Cossa, and we can let him have it. So we're going to make fun of him because I think he's one of the handfuls like, we can't play Cossa. He's not like, not that he's not ready, but why do that to him and hurt his confidence in front of this terrible defense? And he proved him wrong. So we'll just take a little bit of dig before we get into some cap numbers.
But did he actually sell himself out and send what his gripes?
No, he came into, because I called for Patreon questions, and he came in and he's like, I was wrong about Cossa being up this early. You were right. Feel free to let me have it. And I'm not gonna
don't let
destroy
Greg
you.
hear those things. Come on.
We'll do little jabs. That's what we'll do tonight. A little jab. If you continue to be wrong, we'll let you have it in increasing amounts.
Just
but
every time you say Cossa, just have a flame off to the side. Just for him. Just for Burner.
I can do that. Pierre LeBrun today says part of the NHL's update to owners was salary cap projections for next season. Owners were told that currently, if based on normal CBA formula, it would be a 5% increase, but that could possibly be affected by upcoming CBA talks with NHLPA, where there's a phase-in possibility of getting it to a higher cap amount next season. This would set the cap for 2025-26 at $92,400,000, which is a good number, which would leave the Red Wings with $23,650,277 in available cap space. Your notable free agents at forward, Patrick Kane, Tyler Mott, Christian Fischer, Jonathan Berggren. On defense, finally Jeff Petrie and Albert Johansson. And then at goal, we talked about Ville Husso, Alex Lyon. They're going to be UFAs, which is great. This puts them in a fantastic situation. You're not bringing Patrick Kane back because I'm not even sure he exists anymore from what I've seen. I mean, he hit a post, and that's all I can tell you he did at the Buffalo game. He has had an upper body injury, but so has everyone else. I mean, Patrick Kane's been a non-factor. Tyler Mott, I don't mind bringing him back at a low cap hit. He's been good on the PK for what the PK has been when Newsy has decided to play him. He's a high energy player. He has a little bit of offensive instinct in him. I have no issue bringing Tyler Mott back. If you bring Tyler Mott back, you don't need Christian Fischer. There's your double right there. You take one or the other. Berggren, not a lot has happened with him. He's getting chances, nothing's going in. So I'm going to take it or leave it. Let's see how he finishes out the year. Petrie, bye yesterday.
Bye-bye.
Albert Johansson, bring him back. Give him maybe a small bump. Maybe he goes up to $850,000 in salary. Fine, whatever. And he's a bottom pair defenseman on this team permanently. And then your two goalies are gone. You bring in Sebastian Cossa as a backup. You've got a lot of money to work with going in to get that second pair left wing or left defenseman. You can put some money in getting maybe a scoring forward. Like, you've got money to work with. So people like freaking out, like he's just going to go sign more bums. You're going to bring in some young kids. Maybe you're going to bring in a Lombardi. Maybe you're going to bring in a Nate Danielson. You're going to bring in a Sandin Pellikka. Maybe you can get Dmitry Buchelnikov to break his contract in the KHL and bring him over. You've got guys that are coming in on cheap contracts, but you've also got a lot of money to make an actual improvement on this roster. And maybe you do a buyout or something.
I think you're going to have to at this point. I mean, it's going to be tricky if you go that route, but you've got three expiring deals on defense after the following season. Sherratt, Hall, Gustafsson. You got to think one of those contracts is not going to be existent into next season. Maybe. I hope. I'm literally hoping at this point it is going to be Sherratt or Hall and just cut ties. Gustafsson this season has been, I think, the exact opposite of what we were hoping for, which absolutely sucks. But at the same time, you're like, oh, but wait, it can actually get worse because Ben Sherratt still exists.
Yeah, and we were hopeful about Ben Sherratt too, and that just like took the world's worst turn.
I was never hopeful about Ben Sherratt. I'm just going to say that right now. I told you that he was not a good hockey player.
You're a fucking liar. I'm going to have to go back
You can go back and look. I'll tell you he had a pretty decent season last year, but I was never hopeful he could replicate that again. My biggest gripe about the defense is not bringing Gostisbehere back. Not saying he was a perfect player. But when we talk about the breakout, I know I've hammered this home, so I don't want to do it again. But they don't have more than two defensemen on that D-core that can make an actual breakout pass.
Would you have given Ghost the contract he got? Would they give him 3 years?
Sure.
I can't do it. Not with what you've got coming up.
Better than Hall and Sherratt and Petrie.
Yeah, but you still would have had all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Could have bought one of them out or traded one of them for a
Obviously
bag of
not, since they still brought guys in and didn't do that.
Listen, if we want to do a buyout, Kyler Yamamoto's buyout falls off.
That drops off
this season. And we are on our last year of paying Justin Abdelkader in 2025-26. So in 2026-27, there will be no buyout money. So if you buy out a Ben Sherratt, you could do that. If you buy out a Justin Holl, I think it's easier to buy out a Ben Sherratt and just sit a Justin Holl, which is fine, or send one to Grand Rapids.
Well, what's important, though, about those buyouts is you only have one more year of them on the books. Rather, like if we all wanted it to see it this season, the only one that really would have been the best bet was Petrie, because it would be one more season on the books.
Yeah.
Whereas those guys would have been next year and the year after still.
Yep.
Wouldn't you think Petrie would want to retire with how bad he's looked? Like,
He already looks retired.
I mean, he's looked arguably better than Sherratt and Gustafson, but that's a low bar.
Yeah, that's not saying much.
It hasn't shielded him from just, oh, hey, here's a puck. I'm going to throw it around these boards from behind my net and hope it gets to one of the guys in the same jersey, which it doesn't. So, yeah, he's 37. He'll be 38.
Jeff Petrie's going to be your
How's his
next
birthday?
FanDuel Sports Network broadcaster.
he might be.
He just turned 37.
Okay.
So there you go. Yeah, literally yesterday.
Look, and
Forgot.
I'm not saying this to disparage what Jeff Petrie's done in his career. He's
No,
been
he's
a
Yes,
probably
you
done.
are.
What's that?
He's probably done.
Yeah, he's probably done. He's been a decent defenseman in his career. He was pretty good with Montreal at one point.
And
It's
he's still
over.
making $6.25 million right now per year because 3 teams are currently paying his salary.
I'd like to be Jeff Petrie right now.
Luckiest man on the planet.
Yeah. No, the luckiest man on the planet is Bobby Bonilla, but that's a different story.
Dan Campbell,
Say Dan Campbell.
luckiest man on the earth. Look at the team he's coaching, man.
Bobby Bonilla still makes $1 million a year for the next like 15 years.
Century.
You know, we're missing the real luckiest man alive, Juan Soto, making $97
My
a
Lord.
minute.
It makes more than an entire, well, he was at $50 million a year, I said, or 4 Maple Leafs players. That's basically what he makes per year. So, yeah, that's where we're gonna be at cap wise. I mean, we've got money to make it to make things happen. And I mean, there were people like, hey, what if the Avs can't re-sign Mikko Rantanen? Do the Red Wings make a run at him? Like, that'd be a good match. I think Bucci talked about it. And yeah, sure, get us another high power offensive forward that you can work with. But I think what you need is, if you're gonna bring in a guy like ASP, you need a strong second pair defense, like true second pair defenseman to put there with him. Is that going to cost you a ton of money with the cap going up? Probably. Cap goes up, contracts go up. That's just, I mean, the nature of business. And to make that happen, maybe you do need to buy out a guy like Andrew Kopp. Maybe you need to buy out a guy like we said, like a Ben Sherratt. That's something that you can do. You've got the money to do it. You'll only have to pay them for 1 more year. And that'll be it. So it's not as bad as people make it out to be. And so we asked for questions, and there's a lot of questions that kind of go toward that. And Technotom on Twitter at Mr. Gang 23 says, with 18 to 22 million, and it's actually going to be more in cap space, how can Stevie Y improve the team without any more mid players with disastrous contracts? How can we get better without adding more than a year or 2 of term? Is there a cap dump situation somewhere that might be feasible? And I kind of want to start with, you're not getting better with a year or 2 of term. If you're getting a guy of a Rantanen caliber or a second pair, like high-end second pair defenseman, you're looking at a 3 to 5 year term. If you're looking at Rantanen, you're looking at 5+ years probably.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at a Neil Pionk. He's an expiring deal.
Great name too.
Are you looking for, I guess the question is centering around what can they do for the remainder of this season, or
No,
looking
go
into
after
the
next
next
season.
year? And
Going into
I mean,
next year and forward.
looking at Puckpedia, the upcoming UFAs, Neil Pionk is the first defenseman that's on the list based on cap hit. Absolutely. But he's going to want several years because he's 29 years old.
Yeah, so you're looking at a 3 to 5 year deal for him.
I mean, you could maybe get Chikrin on a 2-year deal.
Yeah, that's been mentioned a couple times too. And I don't know, man. Chikrin, he's bounced around so much that I'm wondering if he wants another 2-year deal somewhere, or if he wants a little bit more stability going forward.
I think he just ends up staying in Washington. He's been good there. They've been awesome with him. I don't know why he would leave there.
I think at this point, he's just going to be a journeyman. It's hard to, I think, get through what he's been dealing with.
But following that same vein, Adam Kerr asks, how likely is a trade or buyout of Kopp, or even maybe want to consider Comfer this summer? Also, thoughts on maybe a change of scenery type trade, sending either Kopp or Comfer to Nashville for Tommy Novak. Nashville has been struggling at center all season. And again, I think that's part of what you look at. Like we said, you look at moving a guy, not just moving. I'm not sure you're going to have anyone take Andrew Kopp on a trade, but Kopp is a buyout candidate. Comfer, I think you could trade. I think there's a trade possibility there. So if you think you're going into next season and you're like, yes, Nate, you have done enough, because Marco Kasper's done enough. Marco Kasper is a Detroit Red Wing. He's not touching the AHL again. If you think that Nate Danielson has done enough in Grand Rapids that you're going to bring him over and you're going to play Kasper at 2C, Danielson at 3C going into next season, you move someone. And I think Sherrod is a guy you could move. Or not Sherrod, sorry. Comfer is a guy you could move, because I think Comfer, though his offense has not been there, still holds trade value.
Yeah. Comfer, I'd rather see you hold on to, potentially trade. Cop would be top of my list for a buyout if you're looking forwards for a buyout. I mean, right now, after this season, he's got remaining 2 more seasons through the 26-27 campaign. I mean, a buyout for him would be annual buyout cost of $1,687,000 million.
No, 1,687,000. Jesus, numbers, what are they?
God, I'm in school. So that's your annual cost, almost 1.7 million a year for 4 years that you would pay Cop. Send it. I don't care at this point.
That's peanuts with the cap going up the way it's going up.
Yep. And you know what? It's a lot nicer of a cap hit than his current of 5.75 million.
And it'll look a lot nicer on the ice with the upgrade that you replace him with.
Yeah, I mean that just opens, that's what, $4 million in savings in the first year, and then that goes down throughout. Actually, the second year is your big cap hit still of 2.97. So the second year is the one that sucks, and then 3 and 4 it's the 1.668. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to just, that's the contract you ditch, because Comfer's got 1 extra year on top of things. So now you're just extending the life of that one unnecessarily. Cop gone. Now it lets you go after anyone that's free agent forward. Like a name that stands out to me that could be fantastic, Mitchell Marner.
Yeah, what an upgrade, replacing Andrew Kopp with Mitch Marner.
Now I get it. I don't think, does Marner do anything?
No.
Center wise. So that's
No.
where you lose out. Maybe.
But you're bringing in a center from the minors is what you're doing. You're bringing in a guy like Nate Danielson to come in and play center.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So Tyler, I'm going to give this one to you first. T-God asks, and these are trade questions following the same kind of vein. What players and picks would you trade to get Shane Wright from Seattle or the rights to Anton Salayev from New Jersey? With Larkin, Raymond, Seider, Edvinson, ASP, and Cossa off the table. And my gut says not going to happen, but like, would you give up anything of substance to get Shane Wright out of Seattle?
No. Not that I'm not a fan of Shane Wright, but I don't think that he's the player that he was drafted to become, unfortunately. Again, he's still young. There's still upside there. I don't see it personally. I'm not going to say I've watched every single Seattle Kraken hockey game, but I do watch a lot of hockey. Definitely a good player, but I don't know that I would give up anything of substance to try and get him. And they're not just going to give them to you for free or anything like that, or, for a low, a medium draft pick or, a 3rd round pick or something. It's going to take a 1st round pick. It's probably going to take a couple of your prospects or at least one of your prospects. You have to give up something to get something. A lot of these people that ask questions, and I appreciate the questions, but a lot of people will tweet and they'll say, oh, well, you can get this player from this team and, give up a 2nd round pick. It's like, it takes more than that in a lot of cases. Most of the time when you think it's going to take something, it takes a couple more things than what you think it's going to take.
Did Trouba just shatter that thought process?
Yes, but I think there was baggage there with Trouba.
I think the problem with Trouba was that the GM, like the stuff got out before it happened, so it soured the situation, is what it did there. And if we're looking at Shane Wright in 26 games with the Seattle Kraken this season, 7 goals, 4 assists for 11 points. Shane Wright's a center, correct? Would you not get similar-ish production from bringing in like a Nate Danielson? Like, yeah. In only before, before this, he had 8 games with the Kraken in 2022-23, 8 games with the Kraken in 2023-24. This is the first season where he's played like over 10 games really in the NHL, but I think you could get similar production from someone you have in the system without having to expend assets to get them here.
I think that's what you're looking at with really any prospect trade at this point when it comes to what Yzerman's trying to manage. I mean, would it be nice to have some names like what you were seeing right there? Sure. That adds some excitement. But you look at like a Danielson, you look at a Sandin Pellikka,
Amadeus Lombardi.
I was going to say Lombardi. You look at MBN, like there are Francis Nygaard. There's a lot of guys in the system that have that same, arguably the same type of flair going on. Now, I get it. These guys are NHL caliber, but so are Detroit's. And likelihood of being coming into next year, I don't know. You could do a Danielson, throw him on the fourth line. You don't want that necessarily, but you'd probably get that same production that you just referred to with a Shane Wright right now. Maybe. Not saying what happened. He's still going through growing pains and going through what he needs to do to be acclimated, get stronger, understand the pro game. But if that, we've been excited for him already for the last year and a half. The odds are probably good that he's on the opening night roster come next season. And if that means that you've lost a guy like Kopp, as we just talked about, I don't think you're going to be missing.
Couple more quick questions. Benjamin Fair, why do people see the Yzer plan as a failure when the vast majority of our future is still waiting in the wings? Haha, good pun. The core pieces are playing well, and the prospects are knocking it out of the park. I get that the wings are frustrating right now, but the future looks brighter. And I think it's a point we've made pretty consistently for the past couple seasons, is that Yzerman is clearly building this team from the draft, and he's giving you fill-in free agents until the guys that are developing right now are ready. And that's why you saw a Kopp on a 5-year deal as opposed to a 2-year deal, because you had no prospects that were going to be ready within 2 years. So it really didn't matter. Same thing with Comfer. You saw a longer deal because you didn't have any prospects that were going to be ready within that time frame. He kind of looked at the people he drafted, said, this is about how long I think it's going to be until they're ready to play in the NHL. And that is when this fill-in's contract will fall off. And then you finish the team through free agency. Next, this coming off season, you could make a big splash because you're bringing young guys in. And you've seen play from guys like Marco Kasper. You've seen play from guys like Simon Edvinsson, where you kind of know what your trajectory looks like for the next 2-3 seasons and what you need to bring in to replace. That's why you saw shorter contracts for goalies, because you see what Sebastian Cossa can do and what his timeline looks like. And you've got 2 goalies falling off in the time where Cossa is ready. So we've continuously talked about rolling cap. And do I think the Yzer plan is failing? No. Do I think this team this year sucks? Yes. It is not great. And the forwards have gotten progressively worse to a point where they shouldn't be this bad. But I think a lot of that is on coaching at this point, not getting them where they need to be. Because if you look at it, the team didn't change that dramatically from last season to have this big of a fall off. And I don't think that is on the Yzer plan, because I don't think you can look at the Yzer plan on a year by year basis. You have to look at it as a sum total of what's going on. And the direction that we're going, based on what's in the system, is still a great direction.
I have one thing to say about this, because I hear a lot of people saying this. People like to go back to when Ken Holland was the general manager and like say that, oh, the rebuild started 8 years ago. It didn't. It started, 5 years ago when Steve Yzerman took over? We knew it was going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Okay? Last year may have fooled us a little bit to thinking we're a little bit closer than we actually are, right? Because last year was a ton of veterans, right? So maybe this year is the year that they take a step back, and maybe next year is the year that they take a step forward. I mean, I'm not writing this season off totally yet, but I can understand when people say the Yzer plan is not going to 100% what we thought it was going to be. I can understand it in a way because of some of the signings he's made. But then again, some of those signings that he's made have been plug and play kind of guys. It hasn't been like think about it. The trades that he's made The trade for DeBrincat has worked out. We can agree with that, right? He hasn't been perfect, but he's worked out. He's hit on Lucas
DeBrincat
Raymond.
this year's been much better.
He's hit on Lucas Raymond. He's hit on Moritz Seider. He's hit on Simon Edvinsson. So far, I think he's hit on a couple other players as well. So I mean, is it perfect? No, it's not. But there's some signings that we have questions about, right? The Kopp signing is one, the Sherratt one, the Petrie one, the Justin Hall. Those are all questionable signings at this point. The Ville Husso trade hasn't worked out so far, but then there's stuff that he has done. I would say it's about 50-50 in terms of the stuff that he's done good, or maybe 75-25. 75 things he's done good, 25% that he hasn't done good. And again, he still doesn't have all his guys in the NHL yet. All the guys that were drafted, or the higher draft picks, haven't made the NHL yet. So the verdict is still out, in my opinion, on that. So it's like, I know it's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but like, it's the verdict's still not out. The one caveat I have is, why haven't they fired the coach yet?
That's too long of a conversation to wrap in the next few minutes.
No, the short answer I'll give for the Yzerplan failure, there's an air quotes there as I say that, is the Detroit Lions. Because you look at what that Brad Holmes has done, and we've talked about this piece of it before, they see the immediate success that the Lions have had, and they're like, why can't you do that with the Red Wings? Because you have all the guys on your roster need to make an impact in some fashion. The NFL is a much different monster. I get it. You still need a full team effort, but the way you can win with a couple of really stud guys sets the tone. Now I get it. You could argue there's that same thing in the NHL. You look at Toronto with what they've done the last several years, but they've also got a good balance throughout their entire roster to help those guys that do pretty much all the heavy lifting and scoring goals maintain that. I mean, really, if you look at the tenure for Yzerman, I don't think you can start judging him on what he's done since the 21 season post-COVID, because that's where you saw the end of the full tear down, bare studs, all the waste had been shipped out. You're starting to see the end of some of the contracts from that season coming to a head. You're seeing the prospects come through that you guys just touched on and where they need to be, because that's the other thing with the NFL. You've got guys that you draft. They're coming in. If you could be a first round pick or a 7th round pick. Guess what? You've played 3 to 4 years, most likely, of college football. You're coming to the NFL at 22 to 24 years old. The expectation of hockey fans is, oh, they just got drafted. Why can't they come play? They're 18. Some might be still 17. Maybe you got a late draft pick and he's 19. Point is, they're still 2 to 3 years younger than a majority of these guys coming into the NFL. That's a big deal when it comes to development of an athlete's body. And that's why you see it as there's very few guys, unless they're McDavid. That's the easy call out. They can come in and make an impact. But you even just look at him and how much he has changed over the last several years, in his first couple years in particular. They need that growth. That's why we're seeing MBN, he's back overseas. Sandin Pellikka, another year overseas. Seider, took him a couple years to finally hit NHL ice. Same with Casper. Same with Raymond, was one of the exceptions along with Larkin. These guys take time because guess what? They're just quote unquote adults in the United States when they're drafted.
And the reason that the ones that are very high end picks, like number one, like the only people you really ever see start their first season in the NHL is top 3 picks. And the reason they do that is because they can outscore their problems generally. And you normally never see that when they're defensemen. Not many defensemen that are picked that high start in the NHL unless they are built like an adult and have played adult hockey, like have played 2 seasons in the SHL just because they were that good. They're not coming over generally as a defenseman from the CHL at 18 years old and playing in the NHL. It's normally not happening. You see that in high power offensive forwards or generational talents, and that's the only time you see it. And me and Tyler talked last week about how you only see probably 16 or 17% of second round picks ever play more than 100 games. they're definitely not playing their draft season or the season after, or maybe even the season after that. Because like you said, you're not a fully developed human at 18 years old. Like some of them get drafted at 18 and still put on 2 inches in height. Look at Elmer Soderblom, who we didn't think could get any bigger and like grew 2 inches post draft, which is crazy. That's why. We're going to ask one more question really quick before we sign off. Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say my final point. Cale Makar was 21 when he finally came into the league.
Yeah. And I mean, look at him.
He played 2 years at UMass too. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying though. He was 21 years old.
Last one from Shredded Red on Blue Sky. Do you think the Wings eventually trade Berggren or Veleno? Do you see a trade market for them, and what would be the return? If you get anything for them, it's just to get them off your roster. You're getting a mid-round pick at this point, maybe.
They're part of a package to go after somebody if you're getting rid of those guys. Veleno's getting you nothing, to be honest. He'd get claimed in waivers unless you're literally trying to create a roster spot with a trade. He might get you a 7th. That's a future considerations pick.
Yep. Yeah, and Berggren, I mean, he's got the offensive talent, hasn't really been doing it this season. But again, I think if you're moving them, you're moving them to free up a spot. Berggren's an RFA, I believe ARB eligible RFA after this year.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could just choose to not re-sign him, or you could try to trade his rights away, but you're not getting anything for it. And those would just be movements. I don't think I would trade Berggren right now, because you could still just use him as a filler going into next year. Veleno, I don't think fills any need on this team, especially when you have guys like Danielson coming in that could easily replace something like that.
Problem is that Veleno still has an additional season at almost $2.3 million.
Yeah,
so.
And that's hard to trade off too. Like you said, you could waive him, and I think someone at that money would pick him up at a depth piece. So you'd be giving him away to free a roster spot at that point.
Yeah.
Tyler's got nothing. All right, I want to get you guys' final thoughts before we sign off. Final thoughts before we sign off. We're going to start with Ryan since he's back tonight.
No, final thoughts. Just glad to finally be back on an episode. I know it's been a long time. It really has been a long time since I've been able to jump back on.
For the first time in forever, Ryan.
I wasn't going to go there. So, and I still don't want to, because I will hear it in my dreams. But no, I'm hoping, to quote our beloved Mo, maybe last night's win is a turning point for this team to move forward.
The inspirational quote.
Yeah. So we'll lean into Mo's inspiration to try to guide this team to the promised land. But what I'm excited about in particular is it seems like Big Mo Seider has really stepped up in terms of his leadership, whether it's on the ice or post-game conversations. He's really been the focal point, it seems like, when it comes to the media and comments on how the team has been performing. And he's flat out has been calling the team out. But I like the way that he approached going into Buffalo, saying we'll show up with a smile because we need to have a positive energy and outlook, if you will, which is why I had to bring Mo into this, because he's positive about how things are going to go. So I hope that they can build off that. And I really hope it can be done with Cossa on Thursday. I think they got Philly coming up, which is going to be a tough game, especially since they just got Ersson back in goal. So I think he's actually playing tonight. So who knows if he'll play Thursday, but it's a team they need to beat. And if you can do that with Cossa in net and actually go out there and score some goals and not leave your goalie hanging, it's going to be awesome. Yeah. RDR 33.
Yeah. Final thoughts are they just need to start playing better, man. I mean, flat out, they need to play better defensively in front of their goaltenders. And the best players need to be their best players. That's flat out what they need to do. Hopefully, you got Philly twice. Philly's not a great team. I know they're ahead of you, but they're not a great team. You should be able to take advantage of them. Toronto smacked in the middle there, and then you got Montreal twice. You need points, man. You need points because, at this point in time, the season is doing this. It's circling the drain already, and we're in the beginning of December. And the season is circling the drain. You already hear talks of teams, people on other podcasts and stuff like that talking about Red Wings players potentially being available for trade. This is the last thing you wanted at this time of the year. So hopefully they can get things turned around. You can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Yeah, Red Wings are 3 points out of a playoff spot currently, and they are 4 points out of the first wild card. So I think they're 7 points behind Boston for third in the division. So there is time, because again, everyone else also sucks. So there is time to make this up, make this win count, give it energy, give you energy going forward. Embrace it. Embrace the I think we're going to call Mo Seider der Zug, which means the train in German, and I think that's what we're going to roll with, because he's just going and running over people, and we need to see more of that.
Really glad you clarified that, because you sent that tweet earlier and I stared at my phone like, what the hell is he talking about?
The train in German, Ryan.
Got it. Yep. Understood.
Ryan does not know German. But you can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You follow Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. We are on all social platforms, including Blue Sky, which is where a lot of people have gone. So you can go find us over there as well. We'd like to thank the Hockey Podcast Network at HockeyPodNet for hosting us and spreading us around. Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on. That was a weird way to say that. But we will have more t-shirts going up there as well. Working really hard with Brian, who has been really awesome to get these up in time for the holiday season. So those will be going up too. You can
They're
follow
so
us
comfy.
They are very comfy. And I'm thinking about getting them to print these shirts just in tri-blend to send me some so I can do giveaways and things. But you can also find us on YouTube by searching the Grindline Podcast. You can see all our fun facial expressions and us get really angry and make faces at Tyler while he's talking. If you like and subscribe there, turn on notifications, you'll get notified whenever an episode goes live. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockeytown.